Howdy, everyone. My name is Ty Sutton, and welcome to the Heart of Texas Wildlife Youth Program. I'm happy to have each and every one of y'all here today as we talk about this great program that was established out in West Texas. Um, Heart of Texas Wildlife, just talking a little bit about the brief history of this great program. It was established back about 20 years ago from today. It was founded in Melvin, Texas, which is located about over there towards San Angelo in the Hill Country area. Augustus McCrae, better known as Gus, is a local rancher and community leader out there in Melvin. He dreamed about converting his ranch, which is fairly a large place. You can see beautiful hill country right here in this photo. Um, into a wildlife sanctuary that would focus on helping youth with disabilities discover the outdoors through hunting and fishing and, learn how to preserve their habitats, through effective conservation practices. You know, um, Today the Heart of Texas Wildlife has impacted over, 3,000 lives, by giving youth with disabilities self-esteem, confidence, and you know, uh, learning how to hunt and fish with using various adaptive equipment, to meet their individual needs. You know, uh, our goal here at the Heart of Texas Wildlife is to, you know, uh, has always been to make the outdoors a better place than before by changing one life at a time. Um, the mission of Heart of Texas Wildlife, is we're a nonprofit organization, you know, which provides a high quality experience for all youth, um, and uh, develops um, develops an environment that is safe and inclusive and informative, which fosters individual growth and learning the principles of hunting, and how to implement effective conservation practices for wildlife habitats. Our goal is to have the youth who come to the ranch live with a greater self-esteem, as I mentioned before, you know, uh, have confidence, you know, uh, knowledge about the outdoors, and most importantly, leave here with unforgettable memories. You know, uh, Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about, what our training objectives are for Heart of Texas, wildlife, and well, let's just take a look here. Our main objective is develop an inclusive environment. So, our main priority is these kids. Um, a lot of time, these young individuals have never experienced the outdoors, because the fact of the matter is, it's not very accessible. Uh, a lot of these individuals or youth with disabilities, they have chairs that are not made to go over rough terrain. And out there in West Texas, we have a lot of rocks and mesquite trees and giant grass that it's rough on a chair. And it's our job to ensure that every aspect of this camp is accessible and they have the best experience possible. It goes back to making the environment inclusive. Um, uh, you know, uh, Here at the Heart of Texas Wildlife, we've im have improved the grounds of the ranch with contingency trails that go out to the hunting blinds and out to the lake, and we have paved roads already around the lodging area. Um, Everything that you can think of to make it easier for a person to stay in their chair is made available and is made accessible to their needs. Encourage the youth and challenge them. As a team, it's important that we encourage these youth, to step out of their comfort zone, and try something new. By trying a new adaptive piece of equipment, for fishing or using a compound bow, uh, adaptive mount for the first time, it's going to be challenging for them. But, it's essential that we don't let them quit. We encourage them to try again. Um, you know, More than likely they're going to, miss that target, for the first time, or, they're going to, you know, um, they're going to fail, but that's okay. And as a team, we need to uh, encourage them to be persistent. You know, um, uh, and you know, uh, give them advice. For example, how to aim the rifle. Using an adaptive piece of equipment. The adaptive piece of equipment that we use, and we'll be talking about it later on, is the adaptive shooting devices. Um, but give them advice on how to use their gun and with the adaptive equipment, how to aim it, and encourage them to try again. And once they hit that target, I promise you, that's what develops confidence in them, is knowing that they were able to accomplish something on their own. Be proactive in observing. Okay, so basically, it's important that we as a team, observe the youth's behavior. When we are able to understand their character, it will help us to develop a plan, on how to help them reach their goal. You know, and I really want us, as a volunteer team and as a staff members here, to sit down with each of the youth, on that first day when they come in, and we get them situated in the lodge and get a bite to eat and you know uh, you know we talk a little bit. And that evening, I want us to sit around and uh and write down three simple questions, okay? And I want you to ask them, what is their dream career? Now, number two, what is one thing you want to be able to accomplish on your own? Three, have you ever been hunting or fishing before? Okay. This is going to help us to gather some information and understand, what they can do and what they want to do and what they want to accomplish here at the ranch, in this program. Based on their responses, it's going to uh, it, it's going to help us to make a plan of action, to enhance their confidence and their self-esteem. You know, um, uh, and everything, from my perspective and from, Gus's perspective, is that, you know, anything is possible. Wherever you put your mind to, you can accomplish it. You may need a little help along the way with adaptive equipment, but, your mindset is what gets you there and gets you to the next point in your life. So, we're sleeping to, adaptive equipment. So let's take a look at that here. Here we go. All right. So, adaptive equipment. Okay, so the Be Adaptive shooting device, this is a piece of equipment that is transformational to the lives of many individuals who have a passion, for the outdoors. Be Adaptive shooting equipment, it enables individuals with limited mobility and strength, to fire a weapon, which is most commonly, a rifle, pistols, crossbow, um, and it's operated through a joystick mechanism that maneuvers the weapon for aiming and a sip and puff mechanism that operates the trigger. Um, you know, this device can easily be mounted on their wheelchair. It's a little plate that goes right underneath the cushion of your chair. Um, you would have to probably get the youth member out of his chair first, which we do have some Hoyer lifts for them on site. We have a railing system, or we have a manual um, Hoyer lift, whichever one they prefer. We can get them out of their chair safely and put them in another chair, which we'll get to here in a minute. Um, and put the Be Adaptive shooting plate underneath their cushion of their chair, place the cushion back on top, place them back in their chair, and then put the rest of the mount on top of that plate that is screwed on with a bolt. Then the individual is able to operate it from there on. It can also be mounted on an ATV if they prefer not to mount it on their chair. It can be mounted on an ATV, which we have on the ranch. We'll get to that here in a minute, though. But going back to the safety protocol of it, it's vital that I can't stress this enough to y'all. It's vital that we learn how to effectively and safely operate this piece of equipment. We're going to be dealing with a live weapon, okay? Um, you know, youth, you know, will need to understand the importance of the safety when operating this device. Our trained and licensed firearm instructor will conduct mandatory practices on how to operate the shooting device with the youth without a firearm first. Teach them how to aim their weapon using the joystick mechanism. Teach them how to use a sip and puff, for the trigger. And once they're deemed safe, or the instructor thinks that they're ready for a live firearm practice, he's going to make that decision, that call on that. Um, but with if at any moment any of y'all, okay, observe, any action or behavior, it is crucial. Okay, it's crucial that you take action. You stop it, you shut it down immediately. If a youth member is not complying with the safety protocol, okay, as a firearm instructor, they will no longer be able to participate. We can't play around with this. It's nothing to be, naive about or joke. It's not a joking matter. So, if they're deemed unsafe and they're acting, um, you know, they're immature with it, or being unresponsible, or even if a volunteer is just playing around with the equipment, we can't have that either. Um, uh, for instance, for the youth, we'll have to call the parents or the guardian to pick them up. Um, so the same goes with the volunteer. If they're acting unresponsible, um, you will be asked to leave the campgrounds as well. Um, you know, like I said before, it's just that's nothing to play around with, when you're dealing with a live firearm. So, uh, yeah. So adaptive fishing equipment, right? So it's basically um the same thing, Be Adaptive. Shooting equipment makes an adaptive mount for a fishing rod, um, you know, which is a rod that's mounted onto a base mount, that can uh, be easily mounted onto the wheelchair. Same process. The little plate goes underneath their seat cushion. Um, and you obviously have to get the youth out of his chair for it, but then the rod goes right in the middle of the base mount on the mounting system. There's different devices that can operate the reeling system. Just based on the individual needs, we have something that's a hand clip where you can reel in if you have some type of dexterity movement. And we also have something that's a sip and puff deal as well. Um, we have a wide variety. We even have something that's with a button that you can push or a joystick maneuverability for it as well. This device is low risk, but youth may become impatient because, it's fishing, right? I mean, fishing requires a lot of patience. As we all know, it's unpredictable. You may catch something, you may not. But, it's important that we encourage, the youth that, that's part of the sport. You're not guaranteed something. But, as y'all volunteer and as y'all work with us here at the ranch, I want y'all to take this time, which is a great opportunity, um, to talk about the conservation practices, that we implement here at the ranch or the ponds, and lakes alike, and what kind of fish live in the ponds and what they eat, and how to preserve their habitats. You know, um, so it's it can be utilized for multiple aspects. When you're hunting for deer, can't do a whole lot of talking because they can hear you. But for fishing, it's a great opportunity to talk about conservation practices. Off-road wheelchairs. We have about 25 track chairs here at the ranch, 10 heavy-duty four-wheel drive chairs, and 8 off-road capable manual wheelchairs for the folks who are able to push themselves around with. Uh, uh, you know, the reason why we have, wheelchairs is because, we strive to make this place an adaptive environment. But, there are just certain areas on the ranch that require a wheelchair that can handle tougher terrain. Um, Back in the back country, on one portion of the ranch, it's kind of mountainous. There's a lot of thick brush back there, and you really need a track chair to get up in there. And um, that's one way we can get the youth up there and to experience that native habitat by utilizing an off-road capable wheelchair. Um, um, we use these wheelchairs, for hunting, for fishing, and mostly going out into the field to learn about conservation practices, and how we implement them. And we also use it for learning how to track game. We'll get them in their chair and show them how to track a doe or rabbit tracks and various uh, wildlife species. You know, uh, and as for the volunteers here today in the room, it's important that y'all, and as well as the rest of us here, that we ensure that the power wheelchairs are being fully charged every day. And they are properly maintained. What I mean by properly maintained is that there's no loose wires, right? The bolts on the rails are uh, screwed down well. They're tight. The bearings on the rails are tight. Um, uh, there's no malfunction of the chairs. Accessible ATVs, we have 12 ATVs with lifts um, to carry a wheelchair, and the youth to remain in their comfort of their own chair. Even though we do have our own chairs, they're not customized to their needs. So, we don't have specialized backings in the chairs. Some of the youth that we're going to be having here at the ranch have a disease called SMA, so it's spinal muscular atrophy, which most of the time they have scoliosis and they have a curve in their back, so they require a specialized chair that gives them support. Um, so ATV option is the best option for them, so they can remain in the comfort of their own chair, during the activity of their choice. Um, and our hunting blinds are this, you know, state of the art. We have a total of 10 here at the ranch that are fully accessible. We have concrete floors, central air and heat, windows that can be opened and closed for the rifle or crossbow or pistol to be pointed out of for hunting purposes. Um, and we have 5 ground blinds that have this type of accommodations, and we also have 5 stand blinds that have an elevator installed. And so, for y'all's purposes and the staff purposes here, it's our responsibility, to ensure that these blinds are being properly maintained, um, and running efficiently prior to the youth arrival at the ranch. And um, during, uh, inclement weather or whatnot that we may have here, strong winds, out here, we have a lot of gusts and winds that come in about 25, 30 miles an hour winds sometimes, and we won't use the stand blinds because it moves the elevator sometimes back and forth, and that can uh, cause a little uneasiness to the use. So we'll use the ground blinds during that time. Um, but we have accessible fishing boats here at the ranch, and we have uh, uh, we have a total of 4 fishing boats that are capable of carrying 3 wheelchairs and 4 passengers. However, this is something to note. Okay, we only take 2 youth who use power wheelchairs or manual wheelchairs on the boat. We never take 3, always 2. Okay, at a time, and always have 4 volunteers on the boat to assist. Okay, if possible. And it's not always likely, but if possible, we really prefer the youth to use our own wheelchairs. And the reason being is because, you know, the unknown is always possible. In case of an emergency, we really would not want, something to happen to their personal chair, and they, lose their only means of transportation. Um, So we prefer them to use one of our own chairs in case of emergency. You know, as y'all know here, every volunteer has to be trained on how to swim, as well as support someone in the water. Um, which, prior to the youth arrival, we will be conducting a drill practice where we'll reenact an emergency. Y'all will be getting in the water with one of the staff members, and you will have to support him to swim to shore. Um, and so you will have to be able to effectively do that without hurting the person. Some of these kiddos, rather, or you can't just grab them; you're gonna injure them. So being mindful of that is important. Um, but um, but we'll cover that the next 2 or 3 days from now. Um, going back to our standard operation procedures, uh, you know, uh, our basically, our conduct guidelines are pretty straightforward, but they're something that, we going back to our main statement, our kids are our main priority. Okay. So, maintaining a professional environment. Okay. We do not condone, nor will we ever condone any form of foul language on campgrounds, okay? And this is including cuss words, profanity, um, uh, you know, even, to some extent, I've heard a Christian cuss word. We're not going to stand for any of that. This environment is, designed uh, develop, to develop youth eh, to develop youth, as, facilitators, we should be positive role models for these youth. We want them to be able to look up to us, you know, um, yeah, and, we also won't tolerate, any inappropriate jokes. Um, and this is, making fun of something or making a disabled joke about something in hopes that someone will take their disability seriously. That's unacceptable and unprofessional. Um, that won't be tolerated either. Um, unprofessionalism of any behavior towards a child will not be tolerated on the camp. Okay. So this is including, inappropriate touching, or conversation, or bullying. Okay. It won't not be tolerated. Okay. And we will report it to, the local police department if any inappropriate touching is, um, performed on campgrounds. Um, you may ask, well, as a scenario base here, you may ask, well, and I'm just going to give a fake name here, but little Johnny needed help. Um, you know, uh, and he fell out of his chair, so I had to pick him up. And is that considered inappropriate touching? Well, of course not. He fell out of his chair. He needed help into his chair, so you had to pick him up. Okay, what we mean by inappropriate touching is, touching the private areas of a child. That's inappropriate touching. We have a medical staff who is trained and licensed, RN on staff who will deal with the medical needs and that aspect of their needs. That's not your job as a volunteer to be doing that or conducting that. Torturing or any bathing behavior or whatnot. Okay. So alcohol or tobacco products are prohibited on campgrounds. Okay. Um, so, these are just a couple of, um, you know, which, you know, excuse me, which include, you know, uh, uh, tobacco products such as, cigarettes, cigars. We prohibit, vapes or similar substances. A lot of these youth who, come here, have a compromised, immune system, or a form of a health condition where they can't be around smoke. Um, it can cause a complication to their, to their health, especially their lungs. And also, I mean, it's a fire hazard to have a cigarette, a lead cigarette, and when you throw away that bud, I mean, it could cause a grass fire out here in West Texas. It's very dry. It doesn't rain that often, so it causes a brush fire just like that. And we don't want that because it's not safe. Uh, so um, and we also, I mean, since we are um consider it to have a live shooting range. Alcohol is prohibited. It's deemed illegal campgrounds. So, alcohol with weapons is illegal to be operating just like it is for driving. So, um, if a staff member or volunteer breaks this policy, um, well, they will be removed from the campgrounds permanently. Okay, so you will not be able to come back to a volunteer. Um, as Gus used to say, um, The only person who has grace is God. He doesn't. So it's a non-tolerable offense. Um, uh, so moving on to some of y'all's expectations that we expect from y'all. Um, Here we go. Okay, so the voluntary expectations, well, always be respectful. Okay, so always conduct yourself accordingly, with a positive attitude and a willingness to help you be successful, while here at the ranch. Okay, um, you know, act in accordance with our core values. Okay, the values that we embrace here are caring, responsibility, integrity, courage, and inclusion. Okay. You know, going back to our first one, I mentioned caring, right? So we want to see every youth have a transformational outlook on life. Okay. Responsibility, is the desire to preserve our natural habitats through effective conservation practices. Integrity is standing up for what is right even when no one notices. Okay. Courage, equipping youth to step out of their comfort zone and become courageous and trying something new. Okay. Inclusion, ensuring that everyone knows they have a positive contribution to the world. Okay. Um, our values are designed, to help keep our program focused on helping youth become a better version of themselves. Heart attacks is, um, you know, wildlife, as facilitators, we hold ourselves accountable due to these values and display them daily, because we desire to become positive role models for our youth. And as y'all start working here at the ranch as volunteers, I want y'all to really uh, inspire to uphold these values. And not only are they going to transform your lives, but you're also going to be able to positively impact the lives of others. Um, so it's something to, remember and to, understand, the importance of these values. Be punctual, okay? Always do your work to the best of your ability, okay? And meet the expectations that we expect from you. Refrain from using your cell phone. Okay, I cannot express this enough. The importance of not being on your phone, and it goes back to that observational, leadership, accountability. Especially when you're working with youth, um, you can't be distracted on your phone. Something can happen uh, if you're caught using your phone during an activity such as hunting or on a boat. Um, that's an intolerable offense. You will be asked to put your phone away if you break it a second time. You will be asked to leave the campgrounds. Um, you're putting the lives of the youth at risk of something happening because you're not paying attention to your surroundings or the needs of the youth. Be on time to activities, so that means waking up early, making sure everything is squared away. Things are ready to go for the youth that day. All right, so communicate in the issues. If you observe, any unethical behaviors from other staff members, or volunteers, report that immediately. Okay. We hold our value of integrity to the highest degree of excellence here at the ranch. Okay, we don't cut corners. We don't, uh, you know, involve ourselves in the gray area. If something's wrong, we're going to let you know about it. We're going to report that to the chain of command. Okay, your chain of command, you're a volunteer administrator. Okay, um, so hold your fellow peers and your fellow volunteers accountable for their actions. Okay. If for any reason you cannot fulfill your duties, you wake up one morning and you have a dry throat, or you have a sore throat, or you wake up with body aches, you might be coming down with something. Okay. Um, I want you to take a volunteer administrator or contact one of us here and let us know you're sick, because the last thing we want is for one of our youth to become ill. A lot of them, like I've said before, have a compromised immune system. So we don't want them to become sick, severely sick, and be hospitalized just because you failed to let us know about your, um, you know, flu symptoms. What you may deem as a sniffle, it can easily turn into pneumonia for one of them. Okay, so communication is very, very important here at the ranch. Okay. Secondly, keep sensitive information confidential. Okay. You know, Here at the ranch, we have a lot of kids with various forms of disabilities. And part of our policy is not publicly sharing any information, all right, regarding the youth without prior consent from the parents or guardians. Okay, and this includes not taking pictures. I mean, if you're going to take a picture with one of the kiddos, you need to make sure that the parent has um, knows about it, or the guardian knows about it, and gives you approval to take a photo with one of the youth. Okay. And be sure to tell them what you plan on doing with the photo. If you're going to share it on social media, they need to have approval of that as well. Okay. Comply with the policies and procedures. Okay. I know we've covered a lot here today, and a lot of this is very important information, and I want y'all to take it to heart. We're not here to uh, make it so overwhelming we won't want to volunteer, but this is all very important information. Okay. Um, we expect all of our volunteers and even our staff members, to adhere to our policies. Um, so, and we have printed copies of our policies and our procedures that were given to you um, prior to your arrival yesterday here at the ranch. If y'all need an extra copy of those, please let us know in advance. All right, so wrapping up here, our volunteer recognition and evaluations, right? So, you know, we greatly, appreciate and value, y'all and what y'all will be doing here, with Heart of Texas Wildlife, a youth program, and every year, we hold a formal banquet dinner here at the ranch, and we recognize two volunteers who exceeded in their responsibilities, helping a youth member, overcome a challenge within their life. And the selection for the volunteers is based on a staff observation among the volunteers, as well as the evaluation form that is filled out by the parent or guardian, um, about the volunteer who was assigned to a particular youth participant. Um, you know, and one of the amazing stories that we had 2 years ago was a volunteer who helped out a youth member who was in high school, and his self-esteem was really low. Didn't have hardly any confidence. He didn't know what he wanted to do after high school. He just thought that he would just, maybe just try to live out his life the best way he could, and his volunteer really took an initiative in helping him build confidence and showing him that anything he puts his mind to, he can accomplish it, and goes back to, it doesn't matter if you can't physically do something. If you have the will and the determination to accomplish it, with help through assistive equipment or adaptive equipment, you can do anything. When that young man left here, he was a different kid. He was full of determination and persistence, very competitive. And, the success story behind that is he's uh, attending the University of Arkansas. Um, yeah, he's a sophomore now as a business major. But, coming here, it's transformed his life because of the volunteer who took initiative and being a positive mentor with him. So, that's that's what we inspire to develop here at the ranch. Okay. And lastly, volunteers will be asked to fill out a camp evaluation form. Okay, so it's essential, for us as leaders, to understand how we can improve, our program here at the ranch. How can we make this a better experience for the youth coming in? Um, you know, uh, you know, uh, your feedback and perspective on this program is really important to us. So we encourage y'all after the program is concluded, to fill out this form and to share with us, how we can improve or if there's any issues or things that you feel that need to be addressed. You can also put them in the evaluation form as well. Um, and with that, I'm going to leave y'all with any questions that I may have. We really appreciate, each and every one of y'all coming here today and talking with us and um, for y'all time and volunteering with Heart of Texas Wildlife. And again, thank you all so much. And um, I'll leave it open for any questions.